terminology in objective personality is really difficult, so I wanted to make a quick video about defining some of the basic terms for new people. Objective personality is kind of an advanced Myers-Briggs, and these ideas are going to form the foundation of a lot of advanced ideas that are going to be useful later on. I'll be talking about personality, functions, savior and demon states, and the difference between deciders and observers, and single versus double functions. All of these terms have to do with the way that Jungian functions interact with each other, and I'll talk a little bit about that more. Personality analysis is about understanding how people are similar and how they're different. In objective personality, we're going to focus on two things: how people process information and how people make decisions. You can process information in two ways, either by sensing what is actually around you or by looking for patterns, which we call intuition. Those become the sensing and intuition functions. You can make decisions either based on your values and feelings, which we're going to call feeling, or based on logic and reasons, which we're going to call thinking. Those become the feeling and thinking functions. Everyone does all of these functions, but people do these functions in different amounts. So the first part of your personality is about what functions are you using more than others. So if you use sensing and are more focused on observable reality than abstraction, then you are a sensing personality type. If you're using feelings more than you're using reasons to guide your decisions, then you're a feeling type. Let's look at some examples so you know what I'm talking about. Here's Tiger Woods, who's doing sensing talk. So he's talking about specific events in physical reality.
Okay, so when I was at Stanford,
Yeah.
he invited me to come over to Silverado, which is at where the Safeway was, and have dinner with him. So I go to dinner, and we have a great steak dinner, and I pick his brain a little bit, and I leave. My coach finds out, says, did you pick up the tab? It's Arnold Palmer. He says, well, I don't know about this. So he calls into NC2As. They deem me ineligible. I had to write a check to Arnold Palmer for $25. I was at El Paso for the All-American, and until the check cleared, he had to cash the check, send a fax copy to the NC2As, and then I was eligible to go ahead and compete in the All-American.
Here's Jillian Jacobs doing intuition talk.
I don't think I've reached it yet. I've noticed I've been gifted a lot of crystals since I moved to Los Angeles.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Yes?
I don't know, it's an energy thing, it's
Sure.
a healing thing. I've been told I'm supposed to charge them in the moonlight. Have you ever heard of this before?
I have not.
Oh, well, if you really want to get the full healing power, you got to have a full moon, but I guess any old moon will give you something.
Here's Chris Evans making decisions based off of feelings and values.
There were two opportunities. One was a movie about space, and one was Red One. And, I love space, but like I said, I've been doing this a while, and Christmas movies just don't happen enough. I had to jump at it.
And here's Michelle Obama doing thinking, where she's making decisions based off of reasons.
You want to hear, though, if you're...
Well, exactly. That would spark an argument, which he liked to do. So we would have these deep discussions about whether marriage was really necessary, if two people really loved each other, and he would make his lawyerly arguments, and I would be irritated. And that's how he decided to propose to me, by starting that argument at dinner. And so I delivered, because I too am a lawyer and I have my points to be made. So I was in full making my point, and I was like, in 3 and A, and if you think, and da 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 da. And by then dessert was coming out, a platter in front of me with a little box with a ring on it. And in the middle of the argument, I was like, what?
So everyone has 4 functions, but they're not spending the same amount of time on all of them. These personality diagrams show the relative emphasis on each function in someone's personality, which is a lot like how much time you spend on that function relative to the other functions. So this personality spends the most amount of time focusing on the reasons for their decisions, the second most amount of time processing information about reality, the third most amount of time dealing with patterns and understanding abstractions in what they're seeing, and the least amount of time dealing with feelings and values. The function you are doing the most is your savior function, and the function you're doing the least is your demon function. The words savior and demon come from the hero's journey. Everyone starts out in life using their favorite, most comfortable functions, which are their saviors. But for almost everyone, there comes a time in your life when those functions can't save you anymore, and you're forced, usually against your will, to use your least favorite function. The function you hate and are the least comfortable with is your demon function. When you finally learn how to use your demon function, then you complete the hero's journey and return victorious, having mastered your whole self. Not everyone goes through this journey, But the more people I've been looking at through this system, the people I admire are the ones who have grappled with the darkest and weakest parts of themselves and returned victorious. This process usually takes decades, so most of the people who have really mastered this are usually later in their life. Maya Angelou is a savior feeler, which means she's using her feeling function a lot. Here she's talking about dark, uncomfortable feelings, but she's talking about them in a very comfortable way.
In the evening, the people would come home, and the light would be different. All that gaiety and hope and promise of the morning, which went with the morning light, had seeped away through the day, and their shoulders were down and over like that, and they drag out of the trucks and drag across the yard, and their voices, the lightness that had been in the morning, and the teasing, which is so sweet among black people, the teasing of the morning was gone. And it would just be, well, Sister Henderson, I'm back. Yes, it sure was hot out there. And it would seem as if not only had they lost the spirit, but that they had lost texture. Texture was gone.
Contrast that with someone like Margaret Atwood, who is a demon feeler. That means that having feeling-based discussions are going to be very uncomfortable for her. So here she is having a feelings-based discussion where the feelings themselves are warm and happy, but she's very uncomfortable discussing them.
How would you describe love? What is love to you?
You're asking me for the answer to the universe? Yeah.
You would have a satisfactory answer, I'm sure, but how would you describe it? But you did.
Put it that way.
How do you describe love?
You're being incisive, aren't you?
I'm trying to know.
Are you being an incisive interviewer?
I'm just
okay,
talking
so the thing over time with somebody you've been with for a long time, we're not talking Romeo and Juliet. I would say that is a matter of reciprocal tolerance.
So even though those feelings are supposed to be really happy, Margaret Atwood is really uncomfortable discussing them. Everyone has 4 functions, and those functions are all out of balance. The functions that are the most out of balance have your savior and demon function. The functions that are less out of balance indicate a part of your personality that is easier for you to switch between. So if you have a thinking deciding savior, it means that your sensing and intuition are more or less in balance. This person would be called a double observer because they can switch between their observers relatively easily without freaking out too much. People who are double observers get hung up on people issues, not as much on thing issues. People who are savior observers are really using one observer, not both. But their deciders, so their feelings and thinking decision functions, are more in balance. We'll call them double deciders. They tend to not really get hung up on people issues, but they get really hung up on things, information, and chaos versus order stuff. To summarize, everyone is different. Objective personality looks at how people process information and make decisions. Each of those get divided into 2 functions for a total of 4 functions. Differences come from people doing lots more of some functions than others. The functions you do the most are called your savior functions, and the functions you do the least are called your demon functions. People are usually comfortable using their saviors, and they are uncomfortable using their demons. People who have a savior decider function are by definition double observers. People who have a savior observer function are by definition double deciders. Going over the terms again, OP personality types are about the relative amounts of each function in your personality. Those functions allow you to process information and make decisions. Savior functions are the ones you use the most. Demon functions are the ones you use the least. Deciders are people who have a savior decider function. They freak out about people stuff. Observers are people with a savior observer function. They freak out about things. Saying that someone is double deciding means that they are able to easily transition between meeting their own needs and meeting the tribe's needs without freaking out. They are able to do that because their decider functions are in relative balance with each other. Saying someone is double observing means that they are transitioning between processing physical reality and abstract representations relatively easily because their observer functions are in balance with each other. That was a lot of terminology thrown at you in a short amount of time. Nice job. Way to process all of that information. Go take a break, and I'll see you in the next video.